Hello and welcome to this AMBA and BJ webinar. I'm so looking forward to the conversation that's about to take place, but just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so if you have any questions, please put them in the question box and we'll either answer them straight away or at the end. Don't worry if you miss anything, the recording will be sent to you within the week. But without further ado, I'm handing over to Diane Wilson, who will be hosting this webinar.
Thanks, Ellen, and welcome everyone. Thank you for your time this afternoon to join the conversation between Instructure and our partner, Birmingham Business School at the University of Birmingham, who are part of the Russell Group here in the UK. So just to introduce myself and my fellow panelists, my name is Sian Wilson. I am the Senior Account Exec at Instructure for new partnerships with universities across the United Kingdom and Ireland. Alongside, we've got Sarah Montano, Deputy Director of Education, Digital, for the College of Social Sciences at Birmingham Business School, and Chris Sandbrook, Director for the MBA programmes at Birmingham Business School as well. In today's session, some of the takeaways that we hope you will gain will be learning some best practice in moving MBA programmes online, how to prioritise student collaboration in online programmes, how you can make lifelong learning a core part of your offering at your institution, and making the most of your VLE and its integrations. And some areas of particular interest from attendees that we noted today are also learning more about the user experience in Canvas and overall enhancement of the student experience. Just a quick intro to Instructure for those that may not be aware. We are the makers of Canvas, which is the fastest growing VLE in the world. We proudly support over 7,000 institutions across more than 100 countries, including all Ivy League universities in the US and 15 of the top ranked MBA providers globally. At the core of our digital ecosystem is Canvas, which extends beyond just being a fantastic VLE. We recognise that education institutions today need more, so we've collaborated closely with our education partners to understand their future needs. As a result, we've built a comprehensive ecosystem of solutions, now offering a platform that supports all levels of education in both blended and fully online environments. In addition, we have the largest content, strategic, and technology partner integrations available, all tied directly into Canvas. And lastly, we have a highly engaged community of Canvas users from institutions across the world sharing their best practices. So whether you're seeking inspiration or eager to contribute your own insights, there's a 2 million strong community that you can connect with at the click of a button. And speaking to education institutions all day, every day, across the education landscape, there are several key topics that are driving conversations. These are student success, no matter where in the world you're studying from, having the ability to access remote learning experiences which are engaging, personalised and immersive is ever more important. Gen AI and the ways to increase educational impact using Insight and JI tools. Instructure have recently launched a number of powerful AI tools within Canvas. Credentials, short courses, pathways, how a stackable model of qualifications can enable learners outside of the undergraduate or postgraduate programs who are like traditional learners to progress at their own pace, stack courses, build credit, and work towards a higher level of qualification to be successful. Graduate outcomes and attributes, employability potential, and the ability for students to showcase their achievements and soft skills, along with providing opportunities for learner reflection and the growing need for e-portfolios, as an example, as universities are increasingly looking to ensure their graduates are job ready. Equity gap and widening participation, how learning can be made more accessible to those who need it. This is hugely important, and technology should be an enabler here, not a blocker. And finally, lifelong learning, a big topic of conversation as institutions are looking for additional ways to reach new learners, continually innovate their offering and create new revenue streams, as well as compete globally, all in line with providing flexible, accessible learning opportunities for all. In today's discussion, we'll broadly focus primarily on student success, graduate outcomes, equity gap, and lifelong learning. Now, I'm pleased to hand over to Sarah and Chris from Birmingham Business School, who will showcase how they are leveraging Canvas to drive innovation within their programs.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you very much for hosting us on this webinar today. So as you've said, I'm Sarah. I'm a professor of retail marketing in the business school, but I also Deputy Director of Education Digital for our college. So that it comprises of the business school, but also 3 other schools that are in our portfolio. So I'm just going to talk a little bit around the portability of education before I hand over to Chris, who will talk a bit more about how we're using Canvas to really support lifelong learning. So I've worked using Canvas for quite a number of years now, but I've also worked on our distance learning MBA since it was actually launched nearly 10 years ago. And I think one of the things that's perhaps really changed over that time is the real focus on what we term the portability of education. So students today, and particularly our MBA students, they need the ability to be able to learn on the go. It's not like maybe 20 years ago where we'd send them out a load of materials and they sort of have to sort of work them way through book by book. Actually, the expectation of our students is that of course they can mirror exactly what they're doing in work, and they're really looking for content that is broken down into smaller pieces. And of course, Sean's already mentioned the equity gap, and of course we're conscious of the accessibility needs of many of our students who would find actually a wall of text quite difficult to comprehend and actually need to use a number of the embedded accessibility features within Canvas. So some of the things that we found have been particularly useful for us to be able to create an educational platform that's really portable. Again, Sean's mentioned the amount of partners that Canvas have, and that's a real benefit because what we can create is a real kind of variety of digital integrations. So if you want to start a topic off, then you can embed an animation, which is really difficult to say. You can embed that really easily, and it just is a great conversation starter. And I think that's one of the things that we find when we run our face-to-face sessions via Zoom, also using Canvas, that actually what you often need is that great conversation starter. Also, again, we're really focused on employability, as we all are on the MBAs. So we're looking to try and mirror really digital content creation that's happening in the workplace rather than focusing really purely on essays. And the idea of creativity in education as an employability skill is something I've worked on again for many years. From a module lead point of view, it can be quite difficult when module leads approach a distance learning module for the first time, because it is a bit of a kind of volte-face from just turning up with all your lecture notes. So one of the things that's helpful is we can use Canvas to really help storyboard concepts or theories and break it down in a way that means the module leaders can then also become content creators in their own right, because you can integrate a variety of media, and you can just see some of the examples that we've used here. So we've got models that we've built, we've got using ThingLink, and we can also really create great stories, which I think is, particularly exciting. Whilst I might be an expert on some things, but I'm certainly not an expert on everything, and that ability to be able to connect my students to the world's experts, as I've done here in a fashion example, when we link straight out to the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute, actually really benefits our students. So this idea that students can have something that's convenient for them, they can learn on the go, and we ourselves as academics, we can really push at the boundaries as to what is possible and really change learning to be immersive, experiential, but to support that need for our lifelong students. And I'll hand over to Chris.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. We're here as a pair to sort of talk about our Birmingham story. I come with it. Could we move to the next slide, please? So I'm here with my MBA Programs Director hat on. But previous to this hat, I had another one, which was Exec MBA Director, and it was through COVID. And I don't know how many of the 36 participants here had the pain of teaching through COVID, but we certainly did. And we realized just how much of a disadvantage those of us who did not teach online had, because we had to adapt. However, we did have, as Sarah was saying, and we do have our online MBA, has been going on for years, and it was the first one that was accredited by AMBA, which has been very successful and had great experiences, and that was the model during COVID of what great practice is. So having been forced to, as all of us have, to teach the students during COVID, we in the business school realized just how much of a different experience the MBA students who were on the online MBA had, and how fantastic it was with all of the materials, with all of the systems in place. And as a result of that, comparing their experience with the other exec MBA students, the full-time students who at the time obviously couldn't be taught, so we had to sort of be forced to teach online, improvise. As a result of that experience, we realized that we are dealing with people who need a different kind of experience, and with executives who are busy, who are forced to sort of manage their lives, their work, their learning. And we revamped the entire suite of programs to offer a different kind of learning experience. We realized the kind of support that we had and the pedagogical tools that we had for, and we used for the online students were valuable experiences for the other students, including sort of the part-time ones. So we've created a suite of programs now for the part-time ones who include blended learning. So we have an element online which is supported by Canvas, which is fabulous, and an element face-to-face, which is shorter than it used to be. And this redesign, actually, it seems to be, very popular. And I've just come back from a recruitment event in Dubai, and this is exactly what the market needs. That kind of flexibility for the students to learn in their own times, but also to still network, to still come face to face once in a while, and have that kind of experience of sharing and exchanging views with other students. We are also using the modules that we have created, both the online versions and the blended versions, to provide micro-credentials. And this is a longer story, and I don't know how many of the people attending today have participated in previous events. I know it's of interest to most of the business schools. We do want to provide the learners and the future executives with the opportunity to renew their experiences and their knowledge. And we are doing so, but the kind of micro-credentials that we're offering are bearing credit. So it's not necessarily unique knowledge, not non-credit bearing, but it's something that can go towards building your MBA.
Thank you, Sarah and Chris. You really do sell your program so well. It's quite inspirational. They sound really exciting. And I think we've kind of got a sense of how online learning is now completely fundamental to the experience of business school students. But I was interested to know, how do you ensure that the online components of your modules and programs at the school match the experience that students can have when they're on campus?
I can start, Chris. I think, as Chris said, I think actually today we don't really think or shouldn't think as much about, we've got an on-campus purely in-person over here, and we've got an online purely online over here. Actually, really today, education has merged. And I think, as Chris was saying, that actually, you know, we realized that the materials that we created primarily for our online students were actually so beneficial for our on-campus students who are also commuting, have busy lives, they've got their jobs that they're delivering to at the same time. Then actually, if we could think about it more as the content existing in an ecosystem, and it doesn't matter whether you're a student in MBA student in Dubai, Singapore, online, you're exec, you're full-time, you are still going to benefit from this content. And that content can be there to stimulate your learning, it can be there to reinforce your learning, it can be there to help you explore a topic of interest that perhaps is more pertinent for your role. So I think thinking about what we have digitally as an ecosystem, I think, is a really exciting way to think about learning as we start to move forward as we're, you know, redesigning new programs.
I think it's great, and I love the fact that you've got this consistency of experience wherever you're based. I think that really plays into the kind of equity point of view as well. So on the MBA side, we've obviously said, you know, you were the first online AMBA accredited MBA. Congratulations. When moving this program online, what were some of the kind of considerations, or even the things that you've learned perhaps during that process?
Chris, do you want me to just go first, and then I'll
Yes,
hand
please.
over to
Yeah.
the COVID moving? So I think, so I was someone when I joined the MBA who hadn't taught online before. So all my teaching was face-to-face. So for example, I hadn't taught on what would be the old correspondence courses that we had back in the day. I hadn't taught on those. And I will say it was a real challenge to actually really think pedagogically around what those students needed. And I think for me, that was the thing that moving online really taught me, was that there was another way, to kind of coin a phrase. And I actually then started to understand, and obviously as any academic, did much more research around sort of styles of learning, but approaches to learning. And I think really that experience for me was absolutely transformative, and I've really developed my style of pedagogy that is very much, you know, underpinned around accessibility, around this ability to be able to learn on the go, but it's also a pedagogy that's immersive, and when depending on what I'm teaching, but is also highly experiential as well. I'll hand to Chris.
Actually haven't had the opportunity to teach on the online MBA, but I've had absolutely fantastic feedback from our MBA students, the online MBA, when they come for the graduation, and we organize sort of symposiums for all the cohorts to meet. And they said how fantastic it is. They have the freedom to learn in their own time. They have the freedom to go over materials as much as they want, and to clarify it, you know, as many times as they need. And how fantastic it is, especially for senior executives, to have that kind of availability to study and develop themselves in their own time.
And I think a big part of doing an MBA is the network you create. Mm-hmm. And I was really interested to know if you could give some ideas on how you support that kind of collaboration for those online students.
There are many ways, including obviously the group work is one of them, and discussion boards, and again, storytelling. We had students coming for the graduation and saying, we have always been, or we've always chosen to be in the same group because we really work well together online. And we obviously, aside from the kind of groups that we have on Canvas, we then try to organize networking sessions offline. So they're like the symposium and other sort of webinars and opportunities for the students to meet. And once they have that kind of connection online, then they can take it offline, and it creates the network that the MBA students need.
Absolutely. I mean, there's some really powerful aspects in Canvas around, as you mentioned, discussion boards and group workspaces and peer reviews that can really foster that sense of collaboration and learning from each other. I think we're going to head over to a quick poll now, Ellen, if you're able to organise that. But we're really quite interested to hear in this group, like, which VLE are you using at your institution? So it should pop up on your screen now for everyone to be able to cast their votes.
I think while people are just casting their votes, I think the fact that we can use the Canvas platform for students to be able to collaborate, for example, on what we call digital artifacts, that's really helpful for us, because it means that, you know, we are making sure that our assessments, which, you know, in universities do have a tendency to be more assignment based, actually really are building those senior employability skills for executives.
It would be interesting to see what the people come up with in terms of voting, because myself, I've experienced all except Brightspace.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And we all have pluses and minuses, but we're very happy where we are at the moment. Oh, look at that.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
You're not the only ones who haven't had much experience with Brightspace either. But yeah, Canvas converted.
It looks like.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to know who the others are, to be honest. That would be really fascinating. So yeah, no, that's great. I mean, like I say, hopefully people who are using Canvas will also be getting some new ideas, but those who are on some of the other VLEs, you know, just some information as to what could the future look like potentially for you. Right. So lifelong learning, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but we've already mentioned that the student demographic is changing. Not everyone can commit to a full MBA. You know, I'm a working mom. Like, if I want to upskill, it is around my job, around my family. And I know we talked about this at the start. If there's anything further you can add on it, but you know, if you're looking at kind of short courses, micro credentials, you know, what does that offering look like?
So the way that we've done it, we've converted all. So again, sort of a sum up. We have an online MBA, we have a part-time UK, we have a part-time Singapore, part-time Dubai, and we have a full-time, but obviously, you know, we're not talking here necessarily about the full-time, but we've converted all of these into micro-credentials. So essentially, executives who feel the need to renew their knowledge or to get new knowledge in a particular area, they can take one of our modules and then stack them up towards an MBA if they so wish. I do understand that obviously this is the way that we are doing it now, sort of it's credit bearing. Other universities are doing it non-credit bearing, and I think that's sort of moving towards sort of the exec education, or even sort of just module, not necessarily exec, but non-assess, not credit bearing. But it's the future, as you say. We're going to be needing to be learning new things, re-educating ourselves. I say to the students who are now on our programs, don't even plan for having a career like our parents used to have for 20 years in the same company. You're going to switch topics and you're going to switch careers every few years, because that's the world that we live in. You talked about AI and the future of work. Who knows? So universities need to be prepared to teach students different things, and very quickly. And the very quickly and very flexibly is one of these options of having it online. How many of us have the time to go on and study a module at university face to face? And we all want it quick and cheap and quick and fast and flexibly to learn the way that we operate these days. So hopefully, and we did have, and thank you to Amber for inviting me previously and talking about lifelong learning and micro-credentials. This is going to be a hot topic, and hopefully Canvas are going to be our partners in providing yet more life learning and micro-credentials.
Are there any other areas that you guys think that the business school is kind of fostering lifelong learning, besides obviously all the kind of ream that you've just mentioned?
Sarah?
I mean, I think as any institution, you need to think about what you're delivering and think about how that evolves. I think, as Chris has said, we've got made quite a considerable sort of change with the way in which we've structured and we're delivering the MBA, and that's just we're just in the middle of rolling that out across all the various options at the moment.
No, it's great. And I think as we talked about before, people who want to change direction, as you said, they'll do it multiple times over their career now. And, as you say, picking up the learning on the go and ensuring that any kind of asynchronous learning obviously still remains to be engaging. What part of the university's EdTech ecosystem, what part do you think it plays in supporting lifelong learning, and which features perhaps in Canvas particularly do you find most effective in this regard?
Oh, so many features in Canvas. So I think, again, as any large institution, it's not a decision for the business school to, sort of go off and have their own VLE. Of course, we need to factor in, obviously, institutional strategies there. I think from Canvas, I think it's probably tricky to pick just one. But I think I would say it's that ability to be able to offer a variety of different integrations depending on exactly what you're teaching. Because I teach marketing, someone who's teaching accounting is going to need to present their materials in quite a different way. And I think that's what's particularly good about Canvas is you've got a different range of options, and you can think about what you might want to use in order to be able to present your materials. I mean, we've got lots of different things. We've got things like drag and drops. We've got rollover diagrams. We use things like ThingLink, where we can obviously get students to click through. They can see different explanations. I'm quite a fan of a kind of like a bit of a storyboard with a sort of page that's got a bit of text. It might link out to a video. It's got some imagery. It's got a theoretical model that the students can have as well. And yeah, I shouldn't forget that I love animating. So that is definitely one of my favorite things to do. So I think it's that variety that really supports the module leaders and allows them to be creative in their own ways as well.
Anything from your side on that, Chris, at all?
I was listening to Sarah, but I was also very, very tempted to answer. We have some really good questions there. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Can we?
Yeah.
Because we have a fab question there from Mark. When it came to aligning your offer of online with a face-to-face delivery of your MBA, what was your biggest barrier and how did you overcome it? Oh, biggest? How many barriers? Sarah, you've taught on the MBA online and face-to-face, and I'll come to my experience in terms of the redesign, but that's a really good one.
I mean, I think it's a fabulous question. I think the answer is probably how long have we got to talk about it? We could probably talk for the rest of the session. I think there's two, let me focus on two. I think the first one is module leads who hadn't previously taught online and bringing them quite rapidly over into how a digital ecosystem can be used to support learning, because there is a huge learning curve for module leads there. And then I think the second one, and we're obviously just going through this process at the moment, so I don't think we fully answered it, but it's really getting students to think in that sort of flipped learning mode, and realizing that you can't wait until week 4, or Chris will correct me when the in-person sessions are, but actually there is work to be done before, and this is why this work is important. So I think it's a bit of sort of like education on both sides as well, and I think that's a huge barrier, is just thinking quite differently about how to present your content, because I think there's very few students who would like just a 2-hour lecture put up online.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I've seen other universities allocate blocks of topics, you know, rather than 2 hours straight of someone talking at you. Sorry, Chris, you go ahead.
No, I was saying that it's challenging. If you think the way that we were used to teach, sort of face to face, and then think what kind of experience do the online students need, and how do you organize it to keep them engaged, and how do you structure it in a way that sort of follows that kind of learning journey for them, and then vice versa. If you've done that online, how do you then, if especially as Sarah was saying, if we have the blended delivery and the flipped class, how do you ensure that when you actually see the students for that 2.5 days, that they are prepared, and they've gone through everything, and they have the kind of knowledge, and then they can they implement it during the weekend? Again, stories from this weekend of recruitment, students saying, I'm a procrastinator. I'm not going to do whatever you want me to do online until the last moment. How do you keep this? So that's one of the challenges. How do you keep the students who are procrastinators and who want to go through their lessons very quickly because they know that you know there's fire behind, to be engaged and to sort of guide them through that kind of learning experience in a way that benefits and sort of achieves the learning outcomes when they have different styles of learning, where you can do that face to face, but you can't do that necessarily, or it's not as easy to do and as easy to motivate them online. So there are ways that we can employ to guide them, to cajole them, to engage them. But obviously it's sometimes slightly harder than it is when you tell them read, because this is the class and this is a case study, and therefore you've got the time here in front of me to do your work.
Fantastic. I think we have another poll, Ellen, that we can put to the audience now around micro-credentials, and whether the people in the call are offering micro-credentials at their universities at the moment or not. It should just pop up for you now. I do think, as we've talked about already, you know, the changing demands of the workforce, you know, employers are increasingly looking for very specific skills alongside those traditional degree programs. And so, and also, you know, looking for their employees to continually upskill on the job. None of us can afford to stand still anymore, right? And I think micro-credentials can allow individuals to, you know, gain those specialized skills, stay relevant in your field. And the universities definitely have a part to play in this. And I do see universities are, you know, more often now collaborating with the industry to design their micro-credentials, you know, to ensure that they kind of really address those real-time workforce needs.
And interestingly enough, what I've noticed, so we have students wanting to join our MBA, but saying, but you are lacking a particular module. So we like your offering, but I would like another module. And I said, well, go and take an extra micro-credential from somewhere else if that's what you want. And they're going to mix and match very much like it's the menu for tomorrow. Whatever they want to
love that phrase.
Yeah. The takeaways.
Oh, so there's, you know, 63% on yes, 26% on no, and already offering. So it's definitely, again, all the intentions are there for this, for the direction of this to grow. across the sector, which is really exciting to see. At Instructure and Canvas, we have credentials and pathways, which is a really big strength in the platform to meet these needs for those that are interested in building out micro-credentials. Data-driven decisions, you know, it's a really powerful tool for universities, data, if it's used kind of correctly. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from your perspectives, you know, what are the kind of key data points or trends that are really important to you?
So I think, you know, like everyone, everything is kind of around data-driven decision making these days. So we're no real different than industry. I mean, I quite like the Canvas data. I think it generates something that's quite interesting. You can sort of observe your student behaviors. So one of the things I often do on my on-campus modules is I'll post something on Canvas and I'll say, hey, everyone kind of like read this, because it's forming the basis of the questions for Thursday. And it's great because I can see how many people might have actually opened it, which is a start. So they might have, if they've opened it, there's a small chance they've actually read it. So I think that ability to be able to kind of sort of have a look and see, you know, because it takes time to create these materials. I need to see if people are actually using them. I need to see how long they're spending watching the videos and things like that. So I think that's quite a good point. For the data, I think that's something that certainly over the next couple of years we're looking into much more. I think there's some areas that we could really enhance around that usability of data. So one of the things, it does take me a while to kind of like download the data, export it, turn it upside down, play with it, and kind of get something that's quite rigorous out of it in the end. There's Canvas Impact, which is coming. I think that's going to be quite interesting to observe to see if that makes a difference. But I think certainly this ability to be able to see, in inverted commas, exactly what is happening, that I think is useful. I think, just as I said, I think there's more that we can do around making that data really presentable and user friendly, because, you know, as we've all alluded to, we're all busy people with numerous, you know, jobs, trying to do things quickly. So I think for me, it's not only the fact that data is generated, but it is that data going to be usable going forward.
Yeah, and to just continue the line of we're all busy. As a program director, I think it's a big challenge to get the module leads to actually use the data, because obviously every single one of us who teaches on those programs, if we could do what you were saying, Sarah, monitor student engagement, figure out which areas they engage with, they like, they spend more time on, which ones they ignore, and then put all that data towards the sort of the program analysis and strategy, that would be fantastic. But do we have the time? We don't. And so I think it's very much down to each one of us teaching on these to use all of the tools and all of the systems that Canvas has, which are great. If only we had the time, the energy to actually use them. But at program level, they are really useful. Understanding students' behavior, understanding sort of the pressure points, where exactly they find it challenging. And I can tell as a module lead which one they're finding challenging, because they spend a lot of time on those pages. It does feel a little bit like I'm sort of the big brother, but I like that kind of overview to understand what they're doing and how they're engaging with it. And it teaches me what to do and what not to do.
Exactly. And I think with Birmingham, they've just added Impact, as they mentioned, into their Canvas. So I'm hoping our next webinar can be how have you got on with Impact? But just for those that don't know, Impact is essentially a tool that delivers a kind of a further understanding of in-system behaviour. And also, we know that institutions find communicating with students is very difficult. Often students are flooded with notifications from so many different software platforms and emails, and impact is a way that you'll be able to be really specific about what you're saying and to who. So I am really looking forward to hearing your feedback on it once you're up to speed with it. Great. I don't know if there's anything, we're sort of nearing the end of our conversation. I don't know if there's anything that Sarah and Chris you'd like to further talk about today, or if there's anything that from the audience that they'd like to further ask about.
I saw some questions about seeing Canvas examples. That's an idea for the next one, to actually show people how to do it, or to actually show people practically what we do, where we succeed, where we mess up, and what we've learned. Because I see there's obviously a large demand for that kind of show and tell. So that's the next one.
That sounds like a good plan. We'll end up doing a series of these, I'm sure.
Yeah. We all want to see what others are doing, don't we?
That's it, exactly.
Spying, but rather, accepting that these are our limitations, and this is what we're doing, and maybe not getting it completely right.
Great. Well, I guess we'll draw it to a close then, unless there's anything else in the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah and Chris, for joining us today, for your excellent insights, and obviously continued support with the partnership with Instructure. And thank you for all your participations, and look forward to connecting with you soon. If you have any further questions about Canvas or anything that Chris and Sarah are, as you say, delivering within the system, do please feel free to reach out to any of us via LinkedIn or via email. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon.